Hello everyone. We're here today to talk about how the newest version of our SourceTrak product has really reinvented call tracking for big businesses. My name is Catherine Buchholz. I'm the Content Marketing Specialist here at DialogTech, and joining me today is Jonathan Bird, who is our Product Marketing Manager. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to start by talking about why calls are important to truly being able to optimize the customer journey. We're going to break down why marketers have been hesitant to use call tracking technology in order to help that optimization process, and then dive into how we've reinvented call tracking to solve the call tracking dilemma that big businesses are facing. Then we'll break down the SourceTrak 3.0 features that are new to this version. So to start, it really, let's acknowledge that marketers are optimizing the customer journey for clicks every single day. I'm sure all of you are doing it. We do it here. Optimizing for clicks is very easy. The technology is there. The data is there. And in fact, to further the customer journey optimization, 69% of marketers are now investing in attribution reporting. And two of the top models for the attribution are multi-touch and last touch. Marketers are very much moving away from first-touch attribution in order to try and to understand more of the path to purchase that consumers are taking. This is especially true for the customer journey for complex purchases, such as insurance, or say you're buying a mortgage or you're buying a car. These processes tend to have a lot more points of engagement because consumers are doing more research. They need to ask questions. They just want more information in general. And one of these points of engagement is phone calls. So why are phone calls important? It starts with kind of understanding the shift in digital ad spend. So not only is digital ad spend growing, it's going to reach $67 billion this year, which is up 15% from last year. So not only is it growing, it's also shifting to mobile. So 2/3 of this digital ad spend is going to target mobile devices this year. And why is that important? It's because the mobile marketing that's going to result from that is going to drive over 100 billion phone calls to U.S. businesses this year. And that's very important because calls are just this, another point of engagement in the customer journey that we need to be able to account for. And it really occurs, these phone calls occur at different points in the customer journey depending on the industry. So take the mortgage example, that might be closer to the actual purchase of a mortgage versus car buying. You're calling a dealership when you're checking inventory, when you're asking about features. So it definitely differs, but no call is more important than the other. They're all part of the journey, and we need to understand that. And it gives you that immediate connection with a very hot lead. And in fact, phone calls are converting to revenue 10 times more frequently than web leads. So marketers really, that's why their calls are important. And so without being able to track calls, marketers are missing a critical point of engagement in this customer journey. So you can kind of see here, you have online engagements, you have offline engagements, and the different stages of the path to purchase. And when you're not tracking calls and you're not able to track those offline engagements, such as even store visits and different offline marketing mediums, you're missing a way to optimize for and drive more revenue and improve your ROI. So when you take that you take calls and you bring them back into the equation, you're able to optimize the entire customer journey and see the exact path to purchase that your customers are taking. But that begs the question: then why aren't marketers optimizing for these calls? They're important. You see how they fall into the customer journey, and it's really because legacy call tracking solutions couldn't give marketers the data that they needed to optimize for their campaigns. The data wasn't accurate enough. It wasn't detailed enough, and honestly, it wasn't always an affordable solution. These legacy call tracking solutions, you needed more phone numbers, and the more phone numbers you have, the higher your cost goes. And these solutions also risk disrupting web performance and page load times, and even how you operate your existing ad campaigns. If you're adding call tracking on top of them, it could hurt your historical data. You didn't always. There was a lot of risks that kind of ran with that. Same with implementing the technology. Marketers couldn't do it on their own. You needed a lot of help from IT, a lot of heavy lifting there. So that brings me to how we have really reinvented call tracking for big businesses with the SourceTrak 3.0 product. It now gives marketers complete accurate call attribution data. It gives them the fast, seamless implementation and integration that they need, and it gives them an affordable solution. And to kind of break down all of these different features and all these new features, I'm going to toss it over to John, and he's going to take you through all that.
Thanks, Catherine. So to start, we're going to talk about how SourceTrak 3.0 provides complete, accurate call attribution data for the marketers that are looking for a call tracking product. And to start, it's really about that complete word that we have there in this first title, complete attribution for, in this example, every phone number on a site. So legacy call tracking products, even older, very older versions of our own, did not have the capability to track a variety of phone numbers. It was really just the ability to track a single phone number that might be on the landing page, overwrite that phone number with a dynamic one to track its source, any keywords that were derived from it, etc. And with some of these legacy products, that phone number that was typically hard-coded on the website would need to be removed to implement a call tracking product, typically replaced with a snippet of JavaScript that would dynamically insert the phone number. So SourceTrak 3.0, that's certainly not the case. What we do instead, and I'll dive in a little bit more into this in a moment, is use what we refer to as find and replace technology to search for one or multiple phone numbers that might appear on the page and overwrite them with dynamic numbers. So whichever one a customer decides to call, whether it be a certain location or agent that they're trying to reach, etc., they'll be able to reach that, but the marketer will be able to attribute that call to the original campaign that drove it. Now, these multiple numbers can appear on the same page, on multiple pages throughout a site, across subdomains, or even across different domains entirely. Now, for those numbers that appear in a map, those numbers typically load after page load, because I, as a visitor to the website, am trying to find the nearest location to me. So I'm clicking throughout the map and seeing what these locations are, where they are relative to where I am, and so on. Now, typical out-of-the-box products don't allow this capability. Out-of-the-box call tracking products do not allow the ability to change these phone numbers that might appear in the map. However, our SourceTrak 3.0 product allows us to do that with what we refer to as our re-render script, which is essentially just overwriting numbers that might appear after the page is loaded. Again, this could be in a map, but it could also be in a pop-up that someone triggers while they're on the page. Now, the second feature for complete, accurate call attribution is customers aren't always calling from the website. They're calling from, ads themselves, for example. Now, we need to have complete call attribution for not only the calls that come from the site, but those from the ads as well. Now, these ads include call-only ads and also extensions within search ads, which are called call extensions. Now, with the release of SourceTrak 3.0, we have another application that we refer to as our Google Click-to-Call application. And essentially, this allows DialogTech to provide its customers with the most accurate keyword-level call attribution in the industry. Now, on top of that, we also provide enhanced click-to-call data that Google, for example, wouldn't provide to its users that are utilizing its application within its interface. And what I mean by that is the caller ID that's associated with that call. Reverse lookup information, which is basically taking the caller ID and attempting to acquire name and address information associated with that. And we can combine this technology with other technology that DialogTech offers, including call analytics, which essentially allows us to take the recordings of those calls and see what happened on them, what type of conversions might have occurred on those calls, what are people saying, are they using the same industry knowledge and words that you're using in your ads, are they using different words entirely that you might want to utilize later on and bid on them and optimize on them and so on. And lastly, with this application, we also have a tool to manage the creation and the editing of existing call extensions and call-only ads. Within the application, you can essentially create call extensions and call-only ads in bulk, edit their routing, and edit their call recording capabilities and things like that. So you don't have to, do this all within AdWords' interface on a number-by-number level or campaign level. Now, To build more on the accuracy portion of this segment, I want to talk to you all about SpamSentry. SpamSentry is another product that was released last November by DialogTech and is used in tandem with SourceTrak in most cases. Essentially, for those of you who don't know, spam calls have become increasingly more prominent over the last year, mostly due to the rise in political advertisements over the phone. Now, if you're utilizing many phone numbers in call tracking, this makes you somewhat prone to receiving a lot of these calls. For an example here, one of the statistics you'll see on the right is that DialogTech identified 26% of calls as being unwanted spam calls once we activated this product last year for our customers. Now, what this product essentially does is using artificial neural networks, we're able to identify these calls and block them. But before we do that, we need to, of course, ensure that they are in fact spam. So by identifying a call that is possibly spam, what we do is prompt that call with a dynamic IVR. And what needs to occur is that if that's a live person, they need to press a certain key. If that key is pressed, that call can move on and route accordingly, and if it's not, the call will end. Now the benefit of this is, one, that spam call will not be attributed to any marketing efforts that phone number that was called might be tied to, and two, most importantly, the customer is not going to be charged for that call, nor is it going to appear in any reporting within DialogTech, nor any reporting with any integration partner the account might be tied to. And since November, the first month of November, we blocked over 2 million spam calls. Since then, it's kind of dwindled down a bit. It's more around the lines of 2.5, 2.6 million spam calls. And we've done this at a 99.4% efficacy rate. So overall, it's going extremely well, and we hope to continue to find new spam immediately as they may occur, because this is a dynamic industry, and continue to block those as they come up. Now, the second subject we have for today is fast and seamless implementation and integration. Previous versions of a product of ours, or most of our competitors, essentially have call tracking products that might not be so easy to implement. With SourceTrak 3.0, we wanted the customers that are using the product to have a seamless method of implementing call tracking, not only on their site, but also within their advertising. So to start, I want to talk about how SourceTrak 3.0 can be utilized with tag managers. So as you'll see in the next slide, SourceTrak 3.0 utilizes what we refer to as asynchronous script. Essentially, this allows it to be implemented via tag managers like Google Tag Manager, Signal, and Telium. It's as simple as copying it and pasting it right into any of these platforms. No technical experience is required. You find the code within our interface, find it, and place it into any of the tag managers, and essentially it'll be able to run on every page. The code will never need to be updated no matter how many times we upgrade this version of SourceTrak. And to signify how simple this can be, in Google Tag Manager specifically, it really only takes 6 clicks to add and implement the script itself. Now, as far as how does this affect marketers and their existing digital campaigns, for any of you who have implemented a call tracking product in the past, you may be familiar that many providers require you to add a provider-specific tag to your URLs. Now, let's take Google for example. In Google, you would have had to add a tag to that URL, and sometimes that would have affected the statistics itself, resetting it and creating a new ad. Granted, with Google's final URL structure that came out or rolled out periodically since last year, they have aided us, if you will, in making this kind of a non-issue. But with other providers, Bing, etc., it still remains an issue if you're using a provider-specific tag. With SourceTrak 3.0, we have new capabilities of dynamically inserting and replacing phone numbers on a site with an already existing tag, meaning if your URL, for example, has a UTM parameter, or Google Click ID, or maybe a parameter related to a bid management platform, such as Marin's Keyword ID. If that parameter is in the URL, we can dynamically serve a phone number because it is in there. You no longer have the need to insert our parameter in there to make this application work. Thus, of course, not resetting any statistics, creating new ads, so on, making it much easier for a marketer to implement this with any existing campaigns. Finally, we also have the ability to have no negative impact on a website's performance. Now, what do I mean by that? One, going back to this asynchronous JavaScript loading, separately from the site itself, no worry about, our script making any type of lag, if you will, from the site loading. Now, if a script was synchronous and you had multiple phone numbers on a page, for example, the page would load as those numbers replace, thus increasing its time for it to completely form and be displayed to visitors. Similarly, heaven forbid something were to happen as far as the provider side is concerned, if the script was down, the page would still load just fine, and there would be no disruption of service to any visitor to the website. Lastly, because we use find and replace technology, there's no negative effect on the SEO because, one, the hard-coded phone number remains, and therefore, when Google indexes your site, they will see that phone number, index it, and be consistent with, hopefully, depending on how you set up your name, address, and phone number elsewhere throughout the web, consistent with Google's NAP score that they have for you. Now, we realize that not all of our users will want to view campaign-specific, keyword-specific reporting within DialogTech's interface. Although we are a data hub, and people can access this data from us in our reporting at any time, in real time, it's easier for marketers today to view call data as clicks or similar to clicks in the platforms that they're already using today. These could include bid management platforms like DoubleClick, Marin, One, Kenshu, Quizio, etc. It could be marketing automation tools. It could be variant testing platforms like Optimizely, or just typical analytics platforms like Adobe Analytics and Google. The point is that how you view and optimize clicks, form conversions, etc. today, DialogTech wants you to have that same capability with phone calls, which is why we want to push this data to all the platforms that you're using today, and have built a platform that allows us to create new integrations very easily depending on the customer need. Now lastly, we have affordability. DialogTech SourceTrak 3.0 utilizes what we refer to as heartbeat technology. Essentially, what this technology allows us to do is actively monitor the activity of a user while they're on their website. So as soon as a visitor comes to a landing page that has SourceTrak 3.0 on it, we cookie them and can identify them with a unique DialogTech ID. Now, as they migrate from page to page, we can say these pages were the subsequent pages of that landing page, and when they finally make a call, we can tie all of that to that phone call. Now, what does this have anything to do with affordability? Well, let's say the person calls and leaves the site, or let's say they migrate throughout the site and then decide to leave without making a call. No matter what the scenario, other call tracking providers would still take the phone number that you were originally displaying to them and assign it to that person for a period of time. That could be an hour, 24 hours, it depends. And the reason that they assign that phone number to that person for so long is because that phone number is their unique ID in that provider's eyes. By us using heartbeat technology and also assigning our own unique identifier to the visitor instead of the phone number being their identifier, it allows us to reuse the phone numbers more often, because 10 minutes after a person might have left the site, I can take that phone number back and reuse it. So us reusing phone numbers more often, using this unique methodology of uniquely identifying the user, our customers, especially our enterprise customers, need much fewer phone numbers to do this type of call tracking than they would with most competitors of DialogTech. Fewer phone numbers results in fewer costs to implement such a product, and therefore the cost savings makes this more feasible for those very large enterprises. Now, to summarize what we've discussed here regarding SourceTrak 3.0, but also to expand on other capabilities, DialogTech is capturing a variety of pieces of information about the visitor and the caller. The marketing source that drove that person to the website to make that call, the keyword level data, who that caller is, including, if applicable, the name and address information associated with it, along with their caller ID, where they are, what type of devices they're using, and so on. But on top of that, SourceTrak 3.0 is already capable of being used with all of DialogTech's routing applications. And using these applications, not only can marketers optimize the path that the visitor took to get to the site and make that phone call conversion, but they can also optimize how that caller reaches an endpoint. And that endpoint can be a dealership, it could be a hotel, it could be an office or a sales agent, it could be a variety of things. And on top of allowing marketers or even operations managers, et cetera, the ability to optimize on that, we can also provide them both with data about what happened on that call. The call's duration, very basic, but very important, as well as what was said on that call. Did that call result in some type of conversion of value, such as an appointment or confirmation number being stated, and so on. And all of this data, where the person came from, how that person got to where they're going, and what happened on the call, is stored in DialogTech as a data repository and accessible at any time, including, of course, the call recordings and all of the information we gathered about it. But again, as I said before, marketers may not want to utilize DialogTech as another platform that they need to reach or view this data. So that's why we integrate much of it with a variety of third-party integration providers, including web analytics platforms, bid management platforms, CRM, so that you can tie all of this data to an actual sale conversion and then bring that into those bid management platforms, et cetera, that you're using to manage spend and optimize campaigns. And of course, marketing automation tools to help retarget, remarket towards those audiences.
And just to kind of, close this out a little bit, we wanted to highlight a case study of one of our customers, Hotels Corp. They are a subsidiary of Westgate Resorts, which is one of the largest resort developers in the world. But Hotels Corp they basically operate as an online travel agency where they offer really low prices for getaways to premier travel destinations. And as part of their business, most of their travelers book vacations with Hotels Corp via a phone call. And then on the marketing side of things, paid search accounts for the highest percentage of their marketing budget. But the issue for Hotels Corp was really that they had no visibility into which PPC campaigns and keyword searches were actually generating calls for them, and therefore they had no data with which to optimize for their different PPC campaigns. So they turned to DialogTech, they turned to us to optimize their paid search bidding based on being able to track every single call that they receive back to the search engine, the keywords, the ad, and the campaign that drove the call to their business. They were also able to dive in and see which geographic locations people were calling from, and then which times of day and days of the week that generated the most calls for their business. And then they could, again, optimize for those specific keywords, the different locations across the country, and the days of the week that were driving the most calls. And they really saw some fantastic results. They were able to increase the number of calls generated from their paid search campaigns by 83%, and they then increased bookings from those calls by 71%. And they did all of this while being able to decrease the cost per conversion from their paid search campaigns by 10%. So it just really shows you the power of SourceTrak 3.0 and a lot of the features that John took you through. And so thank you so much for taking the time today to listen to some of the new features from SourceTrak 3.0. If you are not currently using call tracking, it's really not too late to start. It's never too late. Give us a call. We want to talk about how SourceTrak 3.0 can help you really, again, back to this concept of expanding the number of customer engagements that you can optimize. You already optimize for clicks, and your everyday marketing is very easy, and now you can do the same for calls. We've just shown you how easy it can be with using the tools that you already use. If you are already doing call tracking with a different provider, or if you're on SourceTrak 2.0, you've automatically been updated to SourceTrak 3.0. If you're on the original version of SourceTrak, please reach out and talk to us about upgrading. But the next step is really to, and evaluate some of those tools that John took you through and mentioned about controlling and personalizing the calls and how they're routed, getting deeper insight into call analytics and what happened in the conversation, and then you can really see this real-time call conversion technology in action. So thanks again so much for taking the time to listen. Give us a call, or you can visit dialogtech.com to request a demo with us. Thank you so much.